first of all started out looking at, again, the frauds. And these really formed the basis of the investigation. And so we went on from there to investigate any other kind of crime, with the exception of murder. And this was a very positive decision that I made, because I felt that if we started to investigate murders, then the question of the witnesses' safety might be jeopardized. It was almost common knowledge that Ronnie Kray had shot George Cornell in The Blind Beggars. As a matter of fact, when later I started to investigate it, people in the East End said to me that the Krays did everything but take the front page of the Times to advertise the fact. I mean, this enhanced their position as gang leaders, you see.
They must have felt such immense power. You see, when they'd done their first killing with Cornell, it must have been about a year or 2 years before they nicked them. So it must have given them a very high sense of power, the untouchables. No one was safe. No one.
In 1965, the Krays had seemed invulnerable to prosecution. 3 years later, a trail of senseless killings destroyed that position.
Leslie Payne was a fraudster. He didn't need violence because he could charm people, he could persuade people. And so when he realized that there was no measure by which he could control the violence of the Krays, he decided then that that was too much for him, and he walked away. And so when I saw him, I was able to persuade him that it would be important and beneficial to him, because I could offer him protection, to make a statement outlining all of the Krays' activities. And this he did. He didn't, unfortunately for me, know anything about the murders, because by that time he'd long since left them. But he did tell me about the frauds, about the long-firm frauds, and certain other activities that the Krays had been involved in. He told me in uncertain terms that the Krays had threatened his life. And so as far as he was concerned, then it was in his own interest to see them put away, and hopefully for a long time.
On the 8th of May 1968, Nipper Reid coordinated a massive police swoop to arrest the Krays and over 70 members of the firm. It was the start of an operation that would rewrite British legal history.
It was all timed for 6 o'clock in the morning. They were all provided with arrest sheets and descriptions of the people that they had to arrest and so on. And of course these were all over the place. They were all over the East End and all over other places in London, of course. And so off we went, and I went with my then deputy, Frank Cater, and some other officers. And we went to Braithwaite House, which was where the Krays were then living. And there we found Ronnie and Reggie in bed, and they were both arrested and taken back to West End Central Police Station. In fact, we were the first team back of all the teams that had been sent out that night. We probably got the easiest operation, I suppose.
Now that the Krays were safely inside, work on the case could begin in earnest. There was still no evidence or testimony that would convict either twin of murder.
What I wanted to do in this operation was not make the mistake that I did in the 1964-65 one. And that was that I thought once the Krays themselves had been arrested, people who'd been victims of their activities would come into the station and say, I want to give evidence. They never did that. And so I learned then that there was this wall of silence in the East End that was almost insurmountable. Once they were all inside, it had been generated from the cells of the Krays and others that now they were all together, they got to stick together. And that if anybody was found to be attempting to give evidence for the prosecution, then certain repercussions would occur and their wives and family would be in danger.
The twins could no longer intimidate. They had become too volatile and too violent.
Albert Donoghue, who was one of the senior lieutenants, one of the big hefty men, his mother came to see me. He'd been arrested and charged, and his mother came to see me at Bow Street Court and said he wanted to see me in prison. One of the problems is, of course, that if you've got a conspiracy like that where a number of people are together when they commit an act, unless one of them is willing to give evidence of the prosecution, then you can't mount a successful prosecution. And so this was the situation as far as they were concerned. We needed one of this group to come forward. We knew basically what had happened, that this had happened in the basement of this house in Evering Road, but it was a question of getting witnesses. There was one man missing, a man called Ronnie Hart. He was a relation, or it suggested that he was a relation of the Krays, a cousin. And he had never been arrested in the first sweep because we'd no evidence against him. We managed to trace him, and eventually he was persuaded to make a statement in which he said exactly what happened. And he was the prime witness against the Krays.
One piece was still missing: Cornell. A key witness to the murder had been a barmaid from the Blind Beggar pub. She was terrified of the Krays and steadfastly refused to testify against them.
She had seen who had killed Cornell. She knew him, as she actually knew Ronald Kray. And so we began to give her as much comfort and assistance as we could at that time. But we weren't getting anywhere, because at that time people didn't believe that the Krays were going to be held in custody and successfully prosecuted. They believed, as they'd always believed, that they would walk on water again, that they would be able to be acquitted and come back to their usual habits in the East End of London.
Given a new identity, the barmaid was moved out of London to a secret address in Essex.
Eventually, she was persuaded by the nature of the support that she had that she could tell the truth. And in fact, later on in court, she very dramatically pointed to Ronnie Kray and said that is the man that she'd seen in the Blind Beggar's public house.
The trial started in January 1969. It was to become the longest and most expensive trial in British legal history, with more people in the dock accused of murder than there had ever been before. On the 5th of March 1969, both Ronnie and Reggie Kray were found guilty of the charges brought against them.
I wasn't surprised at all. I expected. They said they would get 30 years. They told the barrister, they told the screws in prison in Brixton they would get 30 years, and they did.
I was absolutely overwhelmed. I realised that if somebody had said something to me, I couldn't answer because I was full with emotion. Because this was now a situation that had been going on so long. You know, my whole reputation, my life depended on this almost. It was a fulfilment of an enormous undertaking by my squad. And you know, I felt justified that they'd done all the work that was necessary of them, and that we'd achieved something, really achieved something.
Aunt Violet, myself and Mum was in the kitchen and we was listening to the wireless, and when it came on that they got 30 years, you know, we was dumbstruck, really. We couldn't believe it, like, and Aunt Violet looked at Mother and she said, oh, I think they've made a mistake. She said, I'm sure they have. She said, maybe they'll say later, like, it's not so long.
I'm not going to waste words on you. In my view, society has earned a rest from your activities, and I recommend that you be held for at least 30 years.
I feel they were a part of the 60s, like the minicar and Twiggy and other things. You know, they were a part of it.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.